Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Nigerian authorities ramp up the search for survivors after a ferry goes down on the River Niger and up to 100 wedding guests may have drowned. Also, international frustration over Sudan's warring generals mounts as Khartoum says that it is not ready to meet the enemy with which it has been at war for 2 devastating months. Meanwhile, the fatal clashes continue. And Uganda struggles to protect its forests amidst a population explosion that's also fueled a demand for coal. Production in the north has been banned, but that's proving difficult to enforce. We take a closer look. But first, dozens have been killed in the capsizing of a boat in northern Nigeria. Reports for the death toll have ranged from 50 to 100. Authorities in Kwara State say that guests had been returning from a wedding from the neighbouring state when their ferry went down. Rescue efforts continued on Tuesday. Our Samuel Okoye brings us more.
The boat mishap happened in Egbu village in the Patigi local government area of Kwara State. Latest report from the area indicate that the boat was carrying more than 300 passengers. According to the emir of the Patigi Emirate Council, Ibrahim Umar Bologi, 150 people are confirmed dead, while more than 90 people are missing. 53 people were rescued alive. The police and the Kwara State government say rescue efforts are ongoing. More than 24 hours after the incident, hopes of finding many survivors are beginning to fade as rescue effort is hampered by the remoteness of the area. Many of the passengers, who include children, are wedding guests traveling from neighboring Niger State. The boat was traveling in the Niger River when it sank. Some reports indicate that the accident happened due to engine failure. But accidents with high death tolls are common in Nigeria, especially in riverine areas where people regularly travel by boat. Past accidents have been blamed on overloading and poorly maintained boats, which are prone to sinking. The situation is made worse as passengers normally travel without life jackets.
Samuel Okoye there for us. Now, Nigeria's new lawmakers have been sworn in, and the next big step for the country's new president, Bola Tinubu, is the choosing of his cabinet. He has until the end of July to submit names, but that is likely to happen much sooner. Tuesday also saw the ruling APC party cement their influence over the parliament where it has a majority. Its candidates, Godswill Akpabio and Tajuddin Abbas, were elected as Senate President and Speaker of the House of Representatives, respectively. The National Assembly has long been criticised for not holding much of a check on the executive branch, and that does look set to continue. Now, the US has said that Sudan's warring factions are not taking advantage of talks that Washington's facilitating with Saudi Arabia to try to negotiate an end to 2 months of conflict in Sudan. Riyadh said that it's planning on jointly hosting a summit on the humanitarian response to the war next week. As the devastating fighting continues, regional concern about the impact of the battling also continues to mount. Bastien Renouy tells us more.
After this summit in Djibouti, Kenya's President William Ruto announced 3 initiatives to find solutions to the conflict in Sudan. First, the most important one, a team of mediators from Kenya, South Sudan, Ethiopia and Djibouti are going to Sudan to organize a face-to-face meeting between General Burhan, the head of the Sudanese military, and General Hemeti, the head of the Rapid Support Forces. If they succeed, it will be the first meeting between the two men since the beginning of the conflict on the 15th of April. Then, within 2 weeks, Kenya's president said that a humanitarian corridor will be implemented in Sudan to bring humanitarian assistance to those in need in the most affected areas, such as Khartoum and the Darfur region. And finally, within 3 weeks, he's going to organize a national dialogue in Sudan to find lasting solutions to this conflict. But there is very little hope that it will have a huge impact on the ground. First, because the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sudan published a statement this Tuesday afternoon saying that there was no discussion between the Sudanese government and the mediators mediators before this announcement, and that they did not recognize what was said by the Kenyan president. And then because both the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese army have shown very little commitment to protect civilians during the previous weeks. Most of the ceasefire were not implemented. The Rapid Support Forces are still looting civilian houses. They are still hiding in civilian neighborhoods, and the Sudanese military are still bombing these areas, injuring and killing many civilians. So it's very difficult for those who are still stranded in Khartoum and in the Darfur region to believe that there will be a huge impact after this summit in Djibouti. Many people are still stranded in the most affected areas, and that's why it's very urgent to organize a ceasefire, to implement this ceasefire and to bring humanitarian assistance in the most affected areas.
Our regional correspondent Bastien Renouy there for us. Now, a leading opposition figure in Cameroon has died. 81-year-old John Frui Ndui was the founder of the country's Social Democratic Front, the country's main opposition party. He'd reportedly been ill for several months before he passed away on Monday night. Frui Ndui had challenged President Paul Biya in 3 elections and come in second each time. Biya's autocratic rule has lasted for more than 40 years. And Senegal has become the first African country to host a global summit of the EITI, the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, aimed at looking at how to clean up the governance of oil, gas and mineral resources. The country is set to be the fastest growing economy in Africa this year, in large part thanks to its own reserves of natural gas, which it plans to start exporting to Europe. But there do still remain serious questions about sustainability, as our Sam Bradpiece tells us.
Senegal is home to one of the world's largest reservoirs of unexploited natural gas. In fact, investment from the oil and gas sector, as well as other extractive industries, has played a key part in the country's recent economic growth. Speaking at the conference on Tuesday, the country's Prime Minister quoted directly from the Constitution in a bid to spell out how Senegal has all the ingredients for a model of good governance.
The use and management of natural resources must be transparent. It must create economic growth, and it must respect people's livelihoods as well as be environmentally stable.
In 2019, the brother of Senegalese President Macky Sall stood down from a government post accused of corruption over natural gas contracts. Today, civil society organisations are calling on the government to better redistribute the taxes obtained from extractive industries operating in the country.
In 2020, we got a decree to unlock 5 billion CFA francs, but only 2 billion has been paid out for now. The state owes lots of money to local authorities. That creates suspicion over the question of transparency. What was done with all the money collected by the government?
Africa accounts for less than 4% of all global greenhouse gas emissions, but civil society organisations here say there needs to be more transparency on the question of whether extractive companies are fulfilling environmental obligations on a local level.
Sam Bradpiece there for us. Now, Uganda has long struggled to protect its forests amidst a population explosion that's also fueled demand for charcoal. Now, its production in the north has recently been banned, but that is proving difficult to enforce. Norbert Stecker tells us more.
In a small clearing near the Ugandan city of Gulu, large stacks of logs lie next to freshly cut stumps. A common sight in the north of the country, known for its charcoal production, but one that still left local official Patrick Komakech on the verge of tears.
The drought that we are experiencing in northern Uganda and above all in our district of Gulu, it is as a result of this destruction. So when I saw this one, definitely I began shedding tears, because this is not how our community should go out. We should protect our environment.
In order to halt the destruction, Uganda's president signed an executive order last month banning the commercial production of charcoal in the north. But enforcing the new rules is proving difficult in a country where coal is still widely used as a cheap source of fuel. Deo Senyimba has been burning and selling it for over a decade and doesn't intend to stop anytime soon. He denounces the hypocrisy of authorities and the lack of alternatives to earn a living.
We're not stopping because we have nothing else to do. We aren't going to start stealing. Everyone uses charcoal. Even lawmakers use it. It helps all of us.
Faced with the resistance of producers, some locals are taking matters into their own hands. Former MP Odonga Otto recently orchestrated a raid on a charcoal truck, seizing hundreds of bags. He's since been charged with aggravated robbery, but says he doesn't regret his actions.
I mobilize all the youths in the region to stop any truck carrying charcoal. So we succeeded. The government was overstretched in the whole region, and we managed to make the business risky.
A risky but lucrative business, still driven by widespread demand for charcoal across Uganda.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Till then, take care.
Worldviews. France 24 brings you all the news from hotspots around the world. And France, the Middle East, the Americas, Africa, in Asia. From Europe to Oceania, take a daily trip across borders to keep abreast of all the latest international news. Get exclusive updates from our correspondents around the globe. Our daily reports will take you to all four corners of the world. Every day, watch World Views on France 24 and France24.com.